host, Eric Forsetter. As always, thank you for watching another edition of the EQ Video Tip. Before we jump in, let's review the goals of EQ Video Tip. What's on tap for today? Well, what's your name again? It happens to all of us. Are you tired of forgetting people's names? It happens to all of us. You meet someone, you have a great conversation, you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot that person's name. Well, Bill Murphy Jr. has a great article on how to remember people's names. One of the things he starts out with is telling a grasshopper joke. So a grasshopper walks into the bar. The bartender says, who've known this person for a while, this is a first. Did you know we actually named a drink after you? Wait, says the grasshopper. You mean to say that you named a drink called Steve? So you might laugh at that, but this way we got that person's name or the grasshopper's name. How do we get people's names? Well, names are stored typically in short-term memory, right in the front of our brain. We need to change that and move it to the long-term memory. Bill's going to teach us a bunch of tricks on how to do that. Let's jump in right now. Tip number 1, use visual memory or word association. What do we mean by that? For example, say you're in line for the bathroom and you're talking to someone named John. You can look at the bathroom and go, oh, bathroom, John. They're synonymous with one another, and this way it will remember or remind you of that person's name. Another thing you can do is find a word association of something that reminds you of that name. For example, Emily Smith might be Liberty Ships, as an example. You need to think of something that is very analogous to the person that you're meeting or their name as well. There's an old Seinfeld episode where he can't remember the name and eventually he goes, oh, Dolores. So think about different things that might end up being someone's name in word association. When you do so, you'll either have a visual memory or a word association, which will help you to ultimately remember the name. Number 2, write it down. This could be actually physically writing it down. Say you go to an annual Christmas party, you meet someone, write down who you met, because the next year when you go to that same Christmas party, you might see that person again and you want to remember their name. And maybe write down something that you did with them. Hey, I talked to them about sports or this movie. You can put it in your phone, but make sure you write it down somewhere. When you write down something physically, it actually commits it more to memory. And this way, when you meet them again, you'll have an idea of who they actually are. This is a tough one for me, but some people might like it. Draw a person of that picture. There's actually a study from the Aging Neuropsychology and Cognition journal that says that if you draw someone and write a name to it, you're actually going to remember them. Now, I'm not the best artist, but simply even line drawing may help you remember that person's name, whether you see them in a week, a month, or a year from now. So take a moment, have some fun, and draw that person and their name. Last tip, popular association or character association. If you meet someone with the name Henry, you might think of Henry Ford or your son Henry or a friend named Henry or a nephew. Try to associate that with something that you know, or associate it with a character maybe on a TV show. You might recall from 90210 or Beverly Hills 90210, there was a character named Dylan. When you hear the name Dylan, it might associate you with that person. So when you find someone with that name, associate it with a character so that you can say, oh, this is just like Dylan from 90210, that person must be Dylan as well. You'll remember that character, which will also associate you to that name as well. Hopefully that helps. That's a wrap for this week's EQ Video Tip. Hopefully these tips will help you remember people's names. Remember, different tips work for different people, so adjust these tips to help you remember someone's name. If you can't remember mine, go back to the beginning of this video and you'll see it right there as well.